Yo, in his first official visit to Asia, Don Marco Corleone Rubio meets with the commission's 10 dons. I mean, the Southeast Asian nations dons, just to let them know that as long as they are under the family's protections, that the war in Ukraine will not spill over on them, and that as long as they're paying the Trump families, the sanctions, of course, they're going to continue, but we will continue to buy from those regions, those whose manufacturers and exports basically depend on our market, as long as they remain loyal to Don Trumpito and to Don Marco Corleone Rubio. For real, as long as they remain loyal, they will have the lowest tariffs. I mean, everybody's still getting tariffs. That shit is in stone. But yeah, your tariffs is not going to be as high as everybody else's tariffs. And when asked repeatedly why America had paused its weapon supply to Ukraine, Don Rubio calmly reminded the the other Dons, look, all of Western Europe has enough batteries to they're not using their batteries. They can stop this war if they wanted to help Ukraine, but they still are waiting on the batteries from the U.S. The batteries are the weapons that the U.S. had paused. Uh, let me let the U.S. Secretary of State Don Marco Corleone explain, calmly how, you know, nothing goes down unless we're involved. No blackjack, no dope deals, no nothing. A nickel bag gets sold in the park we want in. Or was that King of New York? I always get the two mixed up. Anyway, my name is Marcus Russell. This is the Marcus Russell Show. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Let's get right to the video.
Conflicts in the Middle East. And again, not because there is a shortage, but because it's prudent to look at it and say, okay, do we have enough of these in our stockpiles for all of our obligations around the world, both in defense of our bases in the Middle East, but also our obligations to our Indo-Pacific partners
Shit.
and any other contingencies that might arise. But in the end, I would say that the overwhelming majority of defense of military aid that the United States provides Ukraine has never been paused and continues along the same schedules that it's been. I think there's a broader issue unrelated to the pause, and that involves the defense productive capabilities of the West, not just us, but of Europe. As an example, one of the things that the Ukrainians need is more Patriot batteries. There are Patriot batteries available in multiple countries in Europe, yet no one wants to part with them. So I hope that'll change. If in fact that Ukraine is the priority that so many countries in Europe say it is, they should be willing to share batteries that right now they don't have a need to use. So hopefully we'll be able to convince some of our NATO partners to provide those Patriot batteries to Ukraine, because there are a number of countries that have them, but no one wants to part with what they have. So perhaps that'll change. That's important.
Mr. Secretary, you mentioned wanting to see a roadmap for how this conflict can conclude. What concrete ideas have you presented, and how did Russia respond in this meeting?
Well, again, these things are best negotiated. I don't want to in private, and that's how these things generally work. There were some ideas exchanged today, some viewpoints that they expressed to us that I'll take back to the president for his consideration, and hopefully it will lead to something. I don't want to overpromise. I mean, again, as I said, this is a conflict that's been going on now for over 3 years, and as has already been pointed out by one of the questions here, we've seen an acceleration of attacks. I think it's probably the largest drone attack in a city close to the Polish border, actually, so it's a pretty deep strike. And again, I mean, every time you see this in the headlines and people die, it reminds you of why the president wants this war to end. As he has said from the beginning, his number one interest here is to stop people from dying and the destruction that's ongoing every single day. They're going to be having a conference, maybe it starts today if I'm not mistaken, about reconstruction and the rebuilding of Ukraine. Every time one of these strikes is launched, the price of reconstruction goes up. Right? There's also the destruction of the country's capabilities, the country's economic capabilities that has to be added to this. But obviously, the loss of life is something of great interest to the president. It's important to note that since January of this year, as an example, just to give you on the Russian side, they've lost 100,000 soldiers, dead. Not injured, I'm talking about dead. And on the Ukrainian side, the numbers are less, but still very significant. And so that's the president doesn't like wars. He thinks wars are a waste of money and a waste of lives.
So I like how we have gangsters running our country now. Big Rubio flew all the way to Southeast Asia, sat down with the leaders of Malaysia, Thailand, Philippines, Cambodia to sit right in front of them face and tell them they are still paying 20 to 40% tariffs. Yes, you're gonna have to pay to these Trumpito families, and hopefully you appreciate that you're paying less tariffs than the other countries. Yep. And although prior to Don Rubio's arrival, the Malaysian Prime Minister, his name is Anwar Ibrahim, he had condemned the tariffs and saying that it was more than just a passing storm. But after the meeting with Don Corleone, he had a better understanding. For real. Because we got to keep our foot on these little countries' necks instead of sponsoring them like we've been doing them for the last 10 years. And plus, if they don't pay us for the protection, then who's going to protect them? Who's going to protect you guys, Southeast Asia? My name is Marcus Russell. This is the Marcus Russell Show. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Until next time, peace.